Hi, everyone. My name is Paul Loberti. I'm an administrator for medical services and the director of the HIV Provision of Care and Special Populations Unit at the Rhode Island Executive Office of Health and Human Services. And welcome back to our series on TAVIE Red on the ground. This is an instructional series with videos that will help you at your agency take TAVIE to new heights, to really look at things that are relevant to this incredible, successful platform that we've developed with the help of its developers, TAVIE Red 360 MedLink. So today we have a very special guest that will be providing an audio about questions that I'll ask her regarding her experiences on the ground, implementing TAVIE Red for the Rhode Island Executive Office of Health and Human Services. First, let me stop and thank the Rhode Island Executive Office for Health and Human Services and the staff of the HIV Provision of Care and Special Populations Unit for all that they've done to support this exciting, innovative venture. TAVIE Red, again, sponsored by their company, 360 MedLink, is an incredibly unique and, as far as I'm concerned, unprecedented digital health platform. We've adapted it and its use to the Rhode Island community of people living with HIV. And without the support of the executive office and the staff at the HIV Provision of Care and Special Populations Unit, we'd never be able to come this far. So throughout these videos, you're going to see things that are pretty exciting, that people are moving into behavior change pretty quickly. Sometimes almost instantaneously will they change their behavior. And they go on quests regarding the gamified approach that we've established and developed with the owners of the company. In addition, the health outcomes are beyond our wildest expectations. We found that people's viral load suppression has increased, medication adherence, frequency of medical visits, and many, many more interesting and intriguing things to keep people living with HIV healthier so that we can all end this epidemic. So again, today we're going to talk about one component of operationalizing TAVIE on the ground. And that will be some of the components. Patrick, can we go back? Because I read what I had on my thing wrong. I'm sorry. I don't know if we can. There it is. I don't know if we can stop where I goofed. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just want to go to a place where I was on a roll until I got distracted by an incoming call. I got to turn this phone down.
I was talking this whole time and I didn't realize I was on mute.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, so you can just take off where you messed up and then I can stitch it all back together.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that was. So all right. Yeah, let's just see if I can start from there.
All right.
Alrighty, yeah. So this session will help us to look at the operational steps that are very important, not only to the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, but also to those agency staff members that are implementing the program. Could I have the next slide, please? So many of you already have been using TAVIE out in the field, and we thank you for that. And I think you'll speak to those positive benefits that you find your clients and patients are engaging in. For us, at the highest end, we believe TAVIE is a time saver for patients and providers, that there's built-in self-assessments and analytics where we can get real-time data come to life so it can drive a person's care plan directly at your end, and also at our end, because of all the aggregate information we're getting, it can help drive a program and really change the direction of a program if things aren't going right. Next, TAVIE is vastly different than other health applications or mHealth mobile applications specifically. This one's really different. So we call it a platform. We call it serious gaming. We call it something that's way beyond the thinking associated with some other apps that are out there where they just encourage people to move in and out of them. We encourage people to stick with this one, to sustain their health benefits and their health outcomes for a long, long time. It's intuitive, it's innovative, and it's intelligent. And finally, there's exceptional data yields and exceptional customer satisfaction. Next, please. So today what we'll focus on is some high-end stuff around on the ground and what it looks like when it gets to your agency. From our perspective at the executive office, what we'd like to see is a high level of agency readiness to perform and get it done. A little bit about enrollment, eligibility, identifying the participants, identifying the right staff to assist with this, a little bit about training, and a little bit about sustaining the program today. Next, please. So as I mentioned, I'm really happy to have one of our staff members, Saray Chan, with us today. And Saray has been involved in not only the data components of TAVIE Red and helps us with reporting and some analytics as well, but she was very instrumental in helping us out, really designing some of the step-by-step operational components of TAVIE Red. Welcome, Saray.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, my name's Ray Chins. I am the program coordinator at the Ryan White unit. Also, the staff that has been serving the Ryan White clients directly when it's come to the TAVIE platform. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us. So today I told our audience we were going to really get to the nitty gritty of some of the things that you've been used to doing for a while now, since almost TAVIE started. I know you came a little after TAVIE got off the ground with us, but some of those things are, and we haven't done this yet at all agencies, but we'd like to have project coordinator selection, and that has to be an individual that can devote about 10, sometimes 15 or 20 hours a week to do this. We find that those agencies that have the project coordinators in place for TAVIE Red do exceptionally well, and so do the clients. So while we're not going to address that directly today, we want people to know how important that is. But some of the other things that you are familiar with are the general aspects of eligibility. And I know that when we first started, we talked a lot about selecting the right people. And in the beginning, before you got there, we were selecting people who were really super vulnerable. They were out of care. Their viral load suppression wasn't good. They weren't taking their medications regularly. We had the data to prove it. And then all of a sudden, we introduced TAVIE, the virtual nurse component, and then improved that with gamification. And so let's start with what you saw when the gamification piece was implemented.
Yeah, sure. So when I first joined the programs, I believe that was when TAVIE Red was just recently introduced to the community, and I had an honor to serve, to go directly to the community and see how the enrollment was and stuff. And I was able to learn kind of like the differences before the TAVIE Red, the TAVIE HIV, the one that we didn't have any gamification in it, and able to see the differences when it comes to a platform with the gamifications. So we have the clients, we have the 47 clients at the beginning where they didn't get exposed to the gamification at all. And then the same client who got exposed to TAVIE Red, which has the gamification included there, we able to see the engagement goes up and their viral load suppressions goes up as well.
Thanks. So really one of the things that our people need to understand is that eligibility is limited to people who are eligible for the Ryan White program and or people who are in our Medicaid program in Rhode Island. And we can allow them the opportunity to experience some of the joys and the benefits of TAVIE Red. So eligibility is very important. And if any agency staff have some questions or concerns about eligibility, they can always call us up. So we're happy to do that. The next is enrollment, which is a little bit different than eligibility, of course. And that's where we get a lot of the paperwork done. Could you talk to folks about what kind of paperwork their clients and maybe the case managers have to be aware of?
So usually when we receive the request from case managers, and of course they already mark as a eligible clients for the program, we usually give them the options of either coming in as for an individual appointment with us one-on-one with their clients, or if they're comfortable with the groups, with the enrollment group, meaning the clients already know each other and stuff, so they have that options. And then at the first enrollment, we usually explain the procedures and everything, how's the program, and we have the enrollment form, which is also called an evaluation form. This is where we asking their questions about their demographic, their how well they think they're doing with their medications, how just a lot of them are self-report on how confident they are and how comfortable they are when it's come to going to a doctor appointment or taking their medications regularly. And we also have a waiver form, which is known as the HIPAA form, for the client to sign. And we have their case managers to be their witness, obviously. We don't, so that way they're comfortable, they have their case manager with them. And we walk through the process and introduce the applications and and make them feel comfortable if they have any question or anything. Just because the majority of the clients, they not familiar with smartphone. So we try our best to make the environment friendly and comfortable for them. And just make sure that they don't feel like they're lower than, or like they feel like this is too much for them. Just because many clients that enroll in the program are like 55 and older, and they never had a smartphone before. So we always be cautious about the environment and make sure that they're comfortable with the process and how we make them feel in general.
Thank you. That's great. I love the fact that you talked about the face-to-face, and I know that COVID put a damper on our ability sometimes to work with the clients directly. So a couple of things that I just want to summarize that you said, talk more about what we did during COVID and what we expect to do in the future so that people can feel comfortable, whether there's a pandemic or not, filling out the forms and getting things done. So the first thing is that there's a couple of forms that are really important. One is the waiver, which is, as you're right, it's called the privacy waiver, but it also has elements around what is expected in a general way of the person who's using it and what some of the roles are. So that privacy is important to us. So we never want to underestimate the ability to protect your privacy or your client's privacy, particularly, I should say. So that's really important to us because we value that. On the other hand, this is a program that they willingly accept, and they have to understand that they too have a responsibility to protect their private health information. And there's not much we can do to control for that if somebody doesn't put appropriate passwords on their phone, shield information from other people. And that's the way it is with our own phones too. For example, if we're accessing information from our doctor's or health portal, that it's up to us to maintain that privacy. So the phone has a lot of built-in features, and that's what this privacy form talks about. The other thing that I think is really interesting is that we have a paper evaluation form, as you said it. How long does it usually take somebody to fill that out?
It's depend, but just because some of our users they're not able to read. Some of them they speak different language. We have two different form, one in English and another one in Spanish. That's why we have their case managers with them, just in case they speak other languages that that we don't that other than Spanish languages, so their case manager is able to assist them. So in average, if they speak English, no problem. It's probably take about 10 to 15 minutes. Other clients having a little problem with reading or hearing, it take about 30 minutes.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's really not a lot of time, but this paper form is so important to get that basic information before they even use the TAVIE app. And the reason for that is we want to do essentially what is called a baseline. So it's so important to get that information. So thanks for talking to us about it. But I want to emphasize to case managers that, of course, the face-to-face is optimal. That's where we really like to be. But there will be cases, as in the case of COVID, where we had to do things more virtually and be creative in getting
Right.
those forms filled out, as well as getting the waivers signed. So I want to thank everybody for participating in that level, because that's important. So the concept of appropriate use of phones, Saray, you know that we've talked about this before, but at the level of an individual who's using the phone, because this is a government issued phone, there's certain responsibility that you have to take care of this phone. So we have to make sure that all of the case managers out there are aware of those responsibilities, and it never hurts to repeat them often. So one is there's no inappropriate use of the phone, and that relates to an individual cannot do things that are illegal. Any illegal activities, having the phone use could be brought up on criminal charges. So that's important. The other thing is we want you to use the TAVIE app. So this app that's built into the phone, the reason why we're giving the clients the phone is to ensure that that they're connected to the internet, that they can communicate with other people, which is important, and that they can use this app. Of course, that's very important. And if they're not using it, and we can tell by aggregate engagement features that will trace back to the individual, we're the only ones that can see that at the executive office. People who are not using the app and engaging in the process, we tell them they may have their phones retrieved. So it is important for case managers to understand this and to emphasize this as often as possible. So again, just the notice here is that we want people to use the phone. We want people to call up others, but there's also data that we give them and time and minutes. So it's important to be very judicious about that data. We don't want to use it up with other things, although it's possible to use it for other things. If somebody keeps requesting more upgrades, we look into it and often find that there may be things on their phone that they can eliminate. So just keep that in mind, that it is a government issued phone and there are some restrictions, folks. So next, let's talk a little bit about troubleshooting, because I know, Saray, you spend a lot of time doing this, and anybody out in the field who's already using it, case manage, will attest to the fact that because we don't build the phones, we don't manufacture them, we just distribute them. We can't control how good a phone is. Although we buy decent phones for people, I have to tell you, they're not the top of the line. We're doing this trying to maintain costs. But tell us about some of the troubleshooting issues that you come up with.
Mm, Most of the troubleshooting we've been experiencing, it's not really about the applications. Usually it's about the phone itself, just like you mentioned. For example, the you know the most issue that been reported to us is the voicemail. Some sometimes they have problem with recording their voicemail, or they having problem putting their personal Gmails in. It's just like the more of the technical problem. And I really have to thank the case managers a lot for supporting and assisting their clients. Just because we're not able to go out to the community all the time whenever they need us, right? But before COVID, we try to commit at least once a week to the agency, and then just let the clients know if you have any problem and come around, and we help them out with whatever we could. But the majority of the problem that has been reported to us is it's a phone problem. um, you know and some clients, they understand, some of them they don't, again, just because they're new to smartphone. So but it's just gotta take some time to help them out. We did what we could. If we need to refer them to any technical assistant with TAVIE or anything we can do at all to assist them with, it's not a problem. And
Yeah,
we able to see a lot of improvement comparing to when we first enroll in 2018, when the client don't even know how to set up password for their phone or turn their Gmail on and stuff. So because of those time that we commit to assist them, now even with the COVID's going on, they're still able to use the phone just fine and the applications as well,
that's a good
just
point.
because they receive
Yeah,
a lot of support from us when we first introduced smartphones to them. I'm talking
that's
about
great.
the the,
Yeah.
the population where they're 50 years old and older, and they never had a smartphone before.
Yeah,
um,
that's a good point. And I think
mhm,
you're right. We do have, I'm glad you mentioned this. We do have the backup of TAVI. There is a helpline available for people if they run into trouble, but we typically have asked case managers to assist us with this. And that's the basic stuff. So there
mhm,
might be
mhm,
times when you hand somebody, as Saray said, a first-time smartphone user, they may get a little disoriented with the icons. They may forget how to turn it off. They may run into a problem with their phone freezing. If we've been using phones for a long time, like many of us have, that rebooting is one of the first things you do, turn it off, turn it on again. So we have to do
mhm,
those basic instructional things with our clients, and we ask you all to be prepared to do that as you get in with TAVI. But again, as Ray mentioned, we typically, if it gets a little bit more serious, where there are things that are coming up, back in the day, we would, before COVID, I guess I should say, we would go out to the agency and work with people, sometimes one-on-one. So we'd like to really make that a little bit more effective and efficient. So case managers are going to be required to assist us with those elements as we go forward. So yeah, that's great. I just want to include into this one, Saray, troubleshooting of the phone. But what happens if somebody loses the phone, or if they drop it and it breaks and what should they do, and what should the case managers be aware of?
well, the first thing when that happened, the client usually either report directly to me, but most of the time they just report it directly to their case managers, and I will work with the case managers. I would look at the client's case and see how long has they been enrolled. I will look at their data usage, how often does the client engage with the app, and I check if there are any improvements since the last time, when since we first enrolled them into the program. For example, let me give you an example, right? Because we included gamification in there, we usually look at, is this client within the first 3 months, is this client at least level 10 in the game on the app. So uh, when they at least 10, level 10, meaning they have been at least doing some kind of activity, like for example, assessments or any activity that related to their medical treatment. They might have been to taking their medication every day for a month or two, or, or they have seen their case managers or their doctors provider regularly using the application. So with our application, we're able to see how often the clients is engaged with that. So if the clients achieve that, meaning they qualify, right? And then we check if this their first replacement request. And then
Gotcha.
right, and then we look at it and see, if the phone is broken and the client's eligible, then I usually have the case manager fill out a replacement form, and see where they are, and then we able to provide a replacement phone if the client is eligible. If it's
Thanks. Yeah,
right,
that's good.
if it's lost, and then it just depends. If the clients
Yeah.
has been using the phone for 3 months and they're
Yeah.
not engaging, and they're not in any kind of crisis, situations, then we'll have to said no, and it's just depend on the client situation.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that, because there are some case managers who did ask questions about what should they do if a client loses a phone stolen or a phone breaks, actually, are the scenarios that we can think of at our end. And thanks for talking about those steps. So usually the client will either talk to you as a case manager, or they'll call us up, and sometimes they'll let TAVIE know. It really depends. But whenever that happens, we take it seriously. So as Ray said, first thing we do is a review to make sure that all the things are in place. And there's a few factors that we look at and consider as well. And there's never been a case where we've really done access to a replacement unless somebody says they want to turn the phone in after it breaks because they just got their own Android phone. That could happen as well. So by the way, for case managers that are not familiar with TAVIE and are just learning through these series of instructional videos, welcome. But know that the platform right now is just one for Android phones. That's why we distribute phones to those people who need them. We are working on an iOS version for Apple phones. So it's not as easy as one would think to just load it into an Apple phone that exists. I know if you're like me, I have an Apple phone for Apple, and it would take me a lot to put that down and use another kind of phone, like an Android-based phone. However, there are individuals out there that because they have an Apple phone, they do qualify for an Android phone. So we really want to minimize that in the future by transitioning over to an iOS, which is for Apple users, so that we don't have to distribute another phone if somebody already has an Apple that they don't want to get rid of. But we understand that right now. So that's part of the process that we go through here. So we ask for your really your attention to these matters, and we're working on another, even though we don't have all the details yet, opportunity to get free government phones from the federal government for those clients that qualify. So when we get more information on that, we'll bring it to you. But again, case managers will have to be responsible for assisting their clients in getting these phones. And it should be a really easy process. There's an eligibility process online. And we'll walk you through the steps if you do that for the other government phones that we issued. Typically call ours TAVIE phones. But for the other ones that will be issued from the federal government, we'll have more information as soon as we get more information on that. So if we could just go to the next slide, please. So basically, what Saray just helped me with is discuss some of the operational elements of TAVIE Red on the ground. These are the basic steps. These are the things we all have to do to get our clients enrolled. If somebody's out there that needs a phone or that wants to be a part of TAVIE, that I should say, there is a process for that too, but ordinarily, you're going to get tapped up for that at the agency level if you're a case manager. There are people sometimes who will call us directly, but really at the agency level, you have to be prepared for all of those things regarding, are they eligible? Can I enroll them? What do I have to do to get them in? So, those little step-by-step elements that Saray mentioned will prove to be very helpful to all of you. Next is, we wanted to make sure that you realized, again, just to repeat, we're putting together this instructional guide where these short videos will be available to you. So you can go back to them at any time just by the module title. And we have my student, Brianna Saucier, who has been helping us with all of this. Brianna, why don't you just say hi to everybody?
Hi, how are you guys?
And I have Patrick as well, who's been helping along. Patrick, give a hello.
Hi, everyone.
So all of these things, the instructional guide, the video, and the training academy that we hope to have for the case managers will be accessible in what I'll call a library or a repository for all of you. So we just wanted to get these important pieces out to you. One of the things that I wanted to talk about briefly is, if we go to the next slide, is really how to achieve outstanding health outcomes and client results. So I'll just briefly recap that for a moment, but there will be more instructional videos to come on that. And if we could just go to the next slide, please. So these are all the steps that Saray and I were talking about At least we talked about step 1 and step 2 and step 3. And I want to get to step 4 and step 5 briefly so you'll understand how you can enhance health outcomes in your patients or clients. So remember, just as a quick recap, we talked that the executive office requires every agency that has Ryan White funds and that is administering the TAVIE RED program to select a project coordinator. It can be a case manager, and we're expecting a minimal of about 12 hours a week will be devoted to TAVIE RED at your agency, depending on how many people you have enrolled. The smaller your agency, it may be a little less at times, but I can assure you that those 10 hours, those 12 hours rather, will be really vital to making sure that the program works. At the higher end, for those agencies that have a lot of participants in TAVIE RED, and it will be growing as time goes on, you know, it may be more hours, and that'll have to be up to the agency's discretion. But as a part of the Ryan White program, again, this is required. So we want all of you to be working with your supervisors, and we want supervisors to be working with the case managers to determine this. Originally, when we put this out, we said about 5 to 10 hours per week. But I think the reality is that it's probably more like 12 hours minimally. However, it will be different for different agencies. So we just wanted to put that out there. The next is screening. And we talked about that. That's the eligibility piece to make sure that, you know, there will be some cases where they have an Android phone and they don't need one. It's really up to a case manager enrolling people in the program to determine if they have an Android phone and that Android phone has the appropriate data and capability of handling this, then they should just load the app, and we'll give you instructions for that as well. Again, the enrollment features we talked about. And next, I'd like to just basically talk about patient and client engagement. And, you know, the agency project coordinator really is going to be the one cheerleading at the agency level, all case managers, to make sure that the patients are engaged. So if you're currently involved in TAVIE RED and have clients that are using it, one of the things that we're going to ask you to do every time you see your client is to check in to make sure that everything is going right with TAVIE. Why is that? Because TAVIE has been proven to be a successful tool in helping us to increase such things as viral load suppression, as I mentioned earlier, medication adherence, visits to their docs, even telehealth visits. We have a COVID module, we have a behavioral health module, and these things are so beneficial to your patients and clients. So if you can't really stop a moment and ask them how they're doing with it, then the success of the program really isn't going to be there. So we ask you to build this into every one of your care planning meetings with your clients, face-to-face meetings or telehealth meetings. So that's the whole concept here, is that we want high level of engagement with the patients. And when we look at our data, and again, we can peel that data away any second, just open it up and look at it, we usually have an incredibly high level of client engagement. So we can tell just by looking at the app. And by the way, client engagement for us isn't just that you turn the phone on and create a hit as some other platforms measure. We don't measure hits because, quite frankly, it doesn't matter if somebody's just opening up an app and look at it. It's how they use it and if they're using it properly. So our level of understanding success is through patient engagement and through patient satisfaction. And our patient satisfaction measures are well above the 87th percentile. And in some cases, when we poll the clients, well over 90%. So we're happy with the way it's going, but we know there's some improvements that are necessary to keep people engaged. And finally, the data management component. And believe it or not, this can dovetail with your care plan, because when patients put in this information, as I mentioned before, you have the ability to see it as a case manager through the TAVIE Pro console. And there is a section in these instructional videos that Dr. Saad has done specifically focusing upon the TAVIE Pro console. So if you haven't seen those yet, we recommend that you do so. And finally, we want to remind you that TAVIE was really put together not only to help the patients, but to also help with case managers as a time saver. So patients are saying that it's time saving for them, and the case managers that we're working with that are using TAVIE Pro say it's time saving for them. And next, please. So we talked a lot about enrollment, And I want to let you know that we can't do this properly without your help, particularly the help of our case managers. And over to the right, you'll see live pictures of our case managers who have been so critical in helping us out. Remember, we started with a very small group of individuals called a cohort of about 47 people. And we picked those people because they were disconnected to care, disenfranchised from systems, had a lot of morbidities going on, including behavioral health issues. So we said, let's go for the most difficult individuals to tackle. And we were very fortunate when we started with that population of individuals that around the same time, we were inventing this gamification process. So when they got the app, it didn't have gamification. But as a result of gamification, it brought them really into very, very, very high level health outcomes. So enrollment in that case meant we had to watch the people enrolled in the program, create a baseline, and follow them through. And that's what we do with everyone. So if there's any opportunity for you to request data from us, we'd like to have a sit down and talk with you. You have access to your individual clients, and we do as well. TAVIE does not, but they can supply us with aggregate data anytime you need it. Currently, there's over 350 people enrolled in the program. And again, I can't thank you all enough for really assisting us. So at this time, we're going to wrap it up. I'd like to thank Saray for her expertise and her skill set. And of course, her boots have been on the ground for a long time. And this isn't always the easiest program to keep and maintain. But thanks to you, we're seeing incredible results with our clients, health outcomes, behavior change. And TAVIE Red has proven to be one of the most innovative tools that we have to end the epidemic in Rhode Island. So again, thanks for your participation, and stay tuned for more instructional videos about TAVIE Red on the ground.